Well, we can now speak to Steve Herman. He's the Executive Director of the Jordan Center for Journalism Advocacy and Innovation at the University of Mississippi. He's also the former White House Bureau Chief at Voice of America. He joins me now from Widewater in the U.S. state of Virginia. Steve, is President Trump and his allies, are they just trying to get rid of or defund anyone they don't like? It doesn't even seem like they're trying to hide their intentions.
Yeah, Anastasia, this is really part of a long-held goal of President Trump to have the media bend to his will, if not break. And why did Trump demand to Congress, for example, kill it in regards to my former employer, the Voice of America? Well, the consensus is he had the power to do so. It draws blood, it sends a warning shot that will be heard by all U.S. domestic media. And Trump, no doubt, is cognizant he cannot totally eliminate, for example, public broadcasting or all the critical voices on the airwaves, but he certainly wants to minimize or muzzle them.
Well, your broadcaster, Voice of America, or VOA, was, as you were saying, one of the first in the line of Trump's fire. Now, PBS, NPR. There is a deep affection for public radio in the US, particularly. It's an intrinsic part of the media fabric there. Can you perhaps give a little context here for our viewers?
Yes, public media really rose up in the 1960s, and it was the alternative to what was essentially at the time the three commercial networks, and we got wonderful children's programming out of it. We got high-quality documentaries out of it on what became the public broadcasting system. And also, as was reported in that dispatch from John in Chicago, these public radio stations cover, I think, about 98% of the country. And it's not only big cities, it's rural areas and a lot of red states, and supporters of Donald Trump as well rely on these broadcasts, even if they don't like all the news and talk programming. But they may be the only stations that are going to send out a warning about a tornado or a hurricane.
Sure. Well, it feels like it is a lot of these community stations that are basically going to disappear. That's going to change the shape of American media and broadcasting as we know it. Perhaps that shift was already underway?
Well, there's no doubt that mainstream media, especially the commercial media, has been facing an existential threat with the technological changes. And I think if you talk to anybody under the age of 45 in the United States, they're probably getting their news from TikTok or YouTube, although the traditionalists would say that that's not real news that they're getting. But, you know, in light of all this, it's been a disappointment to see such networks as CBS pay tribute to Trump, essentially, hoping what are essentially cash payoffs, and even in the case of CBS, programming changes, that somehow this is going to appease the president. And network cable newscasts, CNN, the big newspapers are getting hit from both the left and the right in this country. The MAGA crowd believes that the rhetoric from Donald Trump that these media outlets are enemies of the people because of their critical reporting about the administration, which is the purpose of having a free and independent press. But there are some on the left that are disgusted with the mainstream media also, because they see those traditional journalists as trying to adhere to balanced reporting and not recognizing what they view as an existential threat to American democracy coming from Trump's actions and words.
You mentioned CBS there, so let me ask you what you make of the cancellation of the Stephen Colbert show. Is this about politics, money, both?
I don't think anybody is buying the official line from CBS that this was purely a financial decision. This was a very lucrative program for the network, and coincidentally, Stephen Colbert has been critical consistently of Donald Trump and critical of CBS for essentially trying to pay off the president.
We have just been speaking to Steve Herman there, the former White House Bureau Chief for Voice of America. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts and insights here on the Al Jazeera NewsHour.
My pleasure, Natasha.